La dolce vita, it's not always dolce. So Ciao, lovely humans. My name is Stephanie. Hi, how you doing? Thanks for coming back to my channel. If you're new here, I am a New Yorker who lives in the northern part of Italy, and I am chatting about my experiences as a woman of color here living in Italy. My experience is not going to be the same for other people who live in Italy, but this is just my experience, what I deal with, how I am navigating being in another country. And today's video is a little bit more meatier, I would say, delves into some things. I'm going to talk about, honestly, my journey moving from New York to Italy with a mental illness. It is something that happens to a lot of people across the world, and sometimes people are not able to get access to help. So I'm gonna just talk about my experience of moving to Italy with postpartum depression. So here we go. So yeah, in today's video, I'm talking about moving from New York to Italy and why we left, what was I dealing with, and how I got help. So, leaving New York. I lived in New York for a long time. I went to grad school and basically finished out my 20s into my 30s in New York. Had a really amazing time, loved it. Met my husband in New York, and we had 2 children, a daughter and a son, and we decided to leave New York for a little bit a slower living, a different lifestyle, cost, because New York is expensive. It's gotten even more expensive, and I just can't fathom how people are able to just pay $4K a month, even more, for rent in New York City. It's insane. Full transparency, I lived in a co-op building, a rent-controlled co-op building in Harlem, and that afforded me to be able to stay as long as I did, honestly, because I could not afford to pay market rate for an apartment. I found my first apartment, not my very first apartment in New York, but my first rent-controlled apartment on Craigslist. I found it on a post. There was no pictures, but it did mention the street, which was Manhattan Avenue. And I don't know if folks who have been to Harlem, who have lived in Harlem, lived in West Harlem, Manhattan Avenue, it's a beautiful, beautiful street. I mean, there's amazing, beautiful parts of Harlem, but I remember Manhattan Avenue because I used to live on 112th between Manhattan Avenue and 8th, and I moved out, lived uptown in the 150s, moved to Staten Island for a little bit, crazy, and then I moved to Harlem and was able to get a 1-bedroom apartment. This was back in 2007, a 1-bedroom apartment for $950. Yes, $950 for a 1-bedroom in Harlem, close to the subway, close to Central Park, close to Morningside. It was amazing. My husband and I lived there for a couple of years, and then a 2-bedroom apartment opened up on the 2nd floor, and we moved into that, and we stayed there until we moved to Italy. So that 2-bedroom apartment, I believe we moved in 2011, and we paid $1,700. Yeah. $1,700 at the time, and by the time we left New York in 2018, we were paying $1,900, 19 something for that. But that's a steal, guys. That's a steal for New York apartments. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you. I don't even know where those kind of apartments are anymore if you're not in a rent-controlled building or don't own your own place, because it's just astronomical. So yeah, we really loved living in that apartment. We loved Harlem, but we just didn't have our family close by. I have family in Jersey that are working. My mom is a couple hours away. My mom would come up when she can, and we would go visit when we can and spend holidays. But we mostly had nannies, babysitters, and friends. That was like our big support system. So we thought, okay, we're gonna move to Italy, where my husband's family is, his father, his mother, his sisters. In Italy, the family support is really big component, really helps. So we were like, okay, we're gonna go move to Italy. So we moved to Italy. My daughter was 1.5 years and my son was 2 months old. Yeah, 2 months old. And so we moved with my children in tow. We moved and packed up everything. And after my son was born, I felt off, felt not myself, felt not like who I was. I knew things were different because I didn't have the same feelings that I had when my daughter was born than to when my son was born. And I realized that, yeah, I probably have something going on. And I think maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks after my son was born, I started seeing a therapist virtually to help support me to navigate. And I was diagnosed with postpartum depression. We moved to Italy. I didn't have the funds to keep continuing my sessions because eventually my health insurance was going to finish and I wasn't going to be, therapy isn't really considered part of healthcare, I don't believe. In any case, my health insurance did not cover therapy, so I was paying out of pocket. And when we moved to Italy, what I was able to do was continue for a couple months, and then that was it. I did not have any more therapy care. So, what do you do when you are in another country living far away from what you've known and you're navigating a whole new way of life, a whole new society of norms, and a language that I was not super great at, but I could make my way. What was I dealing with when I didn't have any more therapy sessions that I could go to? Well, I just really tried to do it on my own. I would just confide in my friends, close friends back home, to some family members, and my husband. You know, we were both going through a lot of things when we moved to Italy. It was not easy. I will be honest, the first 2 years here in Italy was difficult. Even though we were able to stay with his family for a couple of months, we then moved into a small 2-bedroom in the center of Treviso. It was not very easy. We were figuring out jobs. I started teaching English online, then figuring out maybe I could do virtual assistant work and just trying to navigate working in another country. My husband, he used to work in the restaurant industry in New York, so when he moved here, he was thinking to transition, into working in a restaurant here in Italy. And it's not the same. The pay is not the same. So much lower. Even though the cost of living here is lower, getting paid a restaurant salary in Italy it's hard. Hard. Not going to lie. For a family of 4, the salary is not that great. Unless you don't have a lot of costs, a lot of living costs or bills or car payments or a rent if you're living with your parents, which I did not want to continue living with Ale's parents because I wanted my independence. I wanted to be independent and as self-sufficient as possible. So we lived in the center of Treviso because it was easy for me to walk around. I could bike around, and there was a bus system that can get you relatively in the vicinity of things. And I was able to move about and not have to rely upon transportation. I could walk to a doctor's office, I could go to the store, I could get food, I can get all my necessities in one area. But yes, I was still dealing with postpartum depression. And I was doing a lot of journaling, meditation, trying to do activities to help with some of these symptoms, but it didn't go away. I couldn't really talk to family members here in Italy about it because honestly, I don't know even if any of the Italian friends that I have, if they've ever experienced mental illness, because no one really talks about it. Mental illness is really a big thing, and it's just not part of discussion. People just don't talk about it. So it was a little bit difficult for me to like share, like, hey, I'm dealing with postpartum depression. Can you help me find a therapist? So yeah, I was confiding with my husband, with my close friends back home, and some family members. The difficult part came was when the really difficult part, because there was a lot already difficult parts, but a difficult part to this was when I was able to afford to start to go to therapy again, which was maybe about a year later. I needed to find a therapist on this side of the world so that I could be able to manage the time, and it can be easy for me to have something in the morning so that I can do while my kids were in daycare or preschool. So I needed a therapist who was on this side of the world, preferably a woman of color, because I just wanted someone who I could relate to and someone who spoke English. I just could not go to a therapist and speak to them in Italian when I could not be able to express myself the way I needed to in Italian. It just wasn't going to work because I already had difficulty speaking the language, and my fluency was not like stellar. It was barely above basic, but wouldn't be able to convey the serious issues that I was facing and comfortably. So how did I find my therapist? I did find one eventually. Actually, it was through Instagram. Yes, folks, through Instagram. I know there's BetterHelp. There are like online websites that help you to find therapists, but I was looking for someone in Italy, honestly, like someone in Italy that I could go to and have virtual calls. So I was following a person. Her name is, I'm gonna shout out to Tia Taylor. Tia Taylor, she has an Instagram page. She has a YouTube channel. A shout out to her because she had mentioned her therapist, and I asked her if I could have her information, and she was very lovely, very nice. She was like, sure, here's who my therapist is. And I was like, thank you. Yeah, she sent me her therapist information. I contacted her. She's a woman of color. She lives in Milan, and she is amazing. Like, she really helped me to work on myself, work on what my issues, and help me get out of postpartum depression. Full stop. Like, I don't know who I would be if I did not get help eventually, because I did need help. And I know that my husband, my close friends, family, they were not going to be able to support me the way that I needed to with a therapist. So I started going to therapy. I was going continually for a year. And then in that time, I started to really try to connect with people because I realized that I needed personal connection, really connect and meet people and do things and get outside of my bubble. As a mom, it's easy to support your family, support your children, and do everything for them and be there for them constantly. But you're a person too. You were a person before you had kids. I was a person before I had children, and so I was figuring out how to also be that new person, because I'm not the same person as I was, and I'm a different person, evolving, growing. We all are, right? So I started to go to meetups. Facebook oddly became a medium for that. I never really used Facebook for meetups, really ever, but here in Italy, even though there's Eventbrite and Meetup and all these things, Internations and some other online meetup groups, Facebook is just like the plethora of meeting new people. That's how it is here in Italy, at least for me. Like, that's how I really have connected with a lot of other people. That has really helped me to build a new community in Italy, honestly. And to be able to rely on people as your new close friends, because for folks, especially older people, I don't know, like, older than 25, it's kind of different making friends than when you're like when you're in your 30s and 40s. You know, it's just different. So I think, well, for me anyway, I value friendship. I value being able to have friends that I can rely on and share moments with and do fun things. And so was paramount for me. So yes, that's my journey of what I went through coming to Italy. And I'm sure there are a lot of folks who, when they move to another country, they cross off all the checklists of like immigration documents, work, living expenses, but the mental part is so important as well, because you can get really isolated. Some people love isolation, some people don't like interacting with others, but then there are those who used to be very social and now feel isolated, feel like they can't connect, feel like they can't reach out and meet new people, feel like they're stuck or they don't know where to go for resources. And it's hard navigating that by yourself. Even if you have a partner, like, they can't provide everything for you, so you have to figure it out, right? Figure it out. And so that's what I had to do, was figure it out. And it wasn't easy. Sometimes it's still not easy. I feel for me, mental illness, depression kind of creeps up now and then, and I need to go back to my therapist, work some things out, get some things clear, and build out some, new ways of coping skills and things like that. It's really important. And I honestly wish that we could talk more about mental illness and depression and all of these things people have that they don't talk about, that they have when they move to another country. They had the support before, and then they can't continue it when they move, and then they don't know how to get more of that support when they're in the new country. It can be daunting. It can be really scary at times. I just trying to want to open this up and let people know that, yes, you can find a way through this. It takes time, and it doesn't happen overnight. Honestly, it doesn't. I wish it did, but it doesn't. And that it's okay to talk about it, and that there shouldn't be a stigma around it. Mental health is so important, and I kind of instill this value of sharing your feelings, sharing what you're going through, especially with my children. I really instill them to talk about what's happening, even if it's hard to hear, even if they say, "I'm mad with you, Mom, I don't like you today." I'm like, okay, you're sharing it, you're talking with me about it, that is okay, let's talk about what's going on. So that's my journey from New York to Italy. This is not just like for talking about postpartum depression, but also depression and other mental illnesses that people have when moving to another country. I want people to feel open to talk about it and share their story, because it's important. Sharing your story is part of the journey, right? So I want to thank y'all for staying this far. If you have, I will just keep sharing, keep being open, keep being honest, right? I want to be honest. I want to be honest about how people are dealing with moving to another country. Living la dolce vita, it's not always dolce. So sometimes it's a little bitter. It's a little salty. It's all those things and more, right? It's all those things and more. I want to share the good and the bad, because there's some bad parts too. It's not all, and it's gonna always be this like up and down, at least for me. I do have to say, I am happy to be in Italy for now. It might change. It might change in a couple years, who knows? And I have to say, there are a lot of people experiencing awful things here in Italy, which sucks. And Italy has a lot of change to do, for sure. I feel Italy has a ways to go in terms of racial equality and immigration and a lot of other things that we won't go into in this video right now. Thanks for checking out today's video. If you have your experiences that you want to share, please drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Open discussion about it. Really, guys, really. Thank you, lovely humans. And if you like what you saw or connected to what I've been chatting about, go ahead, subscribe. That'd be cool too. And I'll see you next time. Ciao.